I am making some cornbread. This is so easy to make. Let's talk about our ingredients. I use a total of a half a cup of some combination of butter and oil. I like to do half and half. So I'm going to do 1/4 cup of butter. That means 4 tablespoons or half of a stick of butter. And then the remaining 1/4 of a cup of my butter oil mix is going to be either canola oil or vegetable oil. It can be any neutral oil. I like canola. So once again, that's 4 tablespoons of butter or half a stick of butter and 1/4 of a cup of canola oil. I'll put that into a bowl and I'll put it in the microwave and I'll melt the butter. The next thing that I need is flour. This is just regular all-purpose flour here in this container. 1 cup of that. And you can absolutely use the King Arthur gluten-free measure for measure flour if someone you're cooking for is gluten intolerant. The next thing that we need is cornmeal. I'm using the fine ground. Some people prefer stone ground. I think most people probably prefer the fine ground. So please consider using the yellow fine ground. That's 1 cup of the cornmeal. We'll need 2 eggs, which are at room temperature. We will need 3 tablespoons of honey. Now I know you might be thinking, I don't like sweet cornbread. I promise you that natural sweeteners generally are not sweet enough to actually make things sweet. You will not really taste the honey. It's just enough to balance out the salt in this recipe. So we'll need 3 tablespoons of honey. We will need 1 1/2 cups of some combination of buttermilk and regular milk. I'll leave it to you to decide. If you prefer a drier cornbread, which I do not, you can totally cut down the buttermilk milk mixture to 1 1/4 or even just 1 cup, but I am using 1 1/2 cups total. You will also need 1 1/2 teaspoons of baking powder. Do use a non-aluminium brand like Rumford. And you'll also need 1 teaspoon of salt. As to the optional ingredients, I do encourage you to use a pinch of cayenne, a pinch of onion powder, a pinch of garlic, and then super optional, I am going to grate into the batter as I mix it. Probably about 1/4 of a cup of sharp cheddar cheese. And I'm also going to drain and chop up some of these pickled sliced jalapeños. Another really nice touch would probably be some cooked crumbled bacon. Okay, as to the tools that you will need, you'll need a 1 cup measuring cup. You'll need a small mixing bowl. You'll need a bowl that can go into the microwave to melt the butter. You'll need this cast iron skillet. I'm using the Lodge skillet, which is the 10-inch size. You will need a teaspoon, and you will also need a whisk. I have put the half of a stick of butter into my bowl, and I'm going to reserve the wrapper that the butter comes in to rub on my cast iron pan, and I'll also probably put a tiny bit of oil on the pan as well. Okay, and then I just eyeballed, using my 1 cup measuring cup, 1/4 of that cup of the canola oil. Let's put this in the microwave. Probably put it in for about 10-15 seconds at a time until it is completely melted. Okay, in goes 1 cup of finely ground yellow cornmeal. In goes 1 1/2 teaspoons of baking powder, not baking soda, mind you, baking powder. In goes a teaspoon of salt. Onto our optional things, pinch of cayenne, pinch of onion powder. Oh, that was a little more than a pinch. And maybe pinch of garlic, a little more than a pinch. You know what, let's put a little more than a pinch of cayenne too. I like my cayenne. Okay, whisk this well. 1, 2, 3 tablespoons of honey. It is my opinion that you're going to get the best flavor if you use, for your 1.5 cups of liquid, 1 cup of buttermilk and 1/2 cup of full fat milk. But you could just use straight buttermilk and you could just use just milk. That's fine. Okay, 2 eggs go in now. Whisk well. All right, now let's put in 1 cup of flour. We put the flour in last because everything else is well mixed and we limit the amount of gluten development that we have to have in our flour. Just whisk this and we'll get it into our pan. Here is our 1/4 cup of butter and 1/4 cup of oil mix. Now half of this is going to go into our batter, and you can just eyeball it, that's just fine. About half. And then the other half goes to coat the bottom and sides of our cast iron pan. That's really going to help this batter to not stick at all. In goes half of our batter. If you have any add-ins, half of the batter in the pan is where you want to put your add-ins, such as chopped jalapeños or cheese. All right, that's the rest of the batter in 400-degree preheated oven for 25 minutes. Okay, our cornbread is out of the oven. It actually ended up taking closer to 28 minutes. But as you can see, the edges are nice and crispy. They've pulled away from the sides. And I'll show you this later as we cut it.
There's going to be some seconds going on today. After a break.